These videos were shot and first went live in 2021 to 2023 as a part of Designer Shala's podcast, The Creative Hour on Instagram, where we interviewed unique designers and creatives on their journey in design. This is an effort to preserve those talks and help future designers and aspirants to understand design better. The views, opinions, and experiences shared in the Creative Hour podcast are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Designer Shala. Designer Shala holds no accountability or responsibility for any statements, claims, or perspectives expressed during the podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
I think after 10 years of practicing pharmacy, I left it in 2019. So that's when I was like, okay, it's time. I kind of let that go. But I remember sleeping for the longest time. And I think if you're enjoying doing what you're doing, I mean, that's your life. I mean, for me, work is my life. Everything I do for work is my life. I mean, yeah, that's what life's about, doing whatever you can. One life, right? But I'm thankful to be able to do it. And I'm truly enjoying it. Yes, initially you might not be making the money you want to make, but eventually you do. Just have patience, you know? So I think whoever thinks that, hey, I want to do this, just stay at it.
Hello. I'm so excited to welcome each one of you to the Creative Hour at Designer Shala. We are kicking off this series on fashion conversations in the design industry. We're getting leading design experts to come talk about their journeys and upcoming design experts to come talk about their journeys in the fashion and design industry in the country and internationally, of course, in an effort to make sure that bridge is created and that gap is filled for design aspirants and design lovers, and they get actual stories of fashion entrepreneurs, fashion designers, stylists, designers in different fields, and understand what is it like to be a part of this design industry and what does it feel like to actually be on the other side. To those who don't know, Deepat is one of these amazing fashion stylists based out of US who's been working in India for the longest time, which is pretty crazy. And the most interesting thing here is that you don't come from a design background. You've studied science all in all. Like you've actually done your, biotechnology in your undergrad in science. You've done your master's in science, and I think you've also done your PhD.
I've done PharmD, so pharmacy. Yeah,
Yeah,
doctor of pharmacy. Yeah.
absolutely. So you've done all of those things in pharmacy, but where did fashion come into the picture in all of these things?
I think it was always there. I think it was always a baseline thing that existed. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I've collected every single Vogue magazine that I've had bought all my life. So I have a room full of magazines, literally. And every time I move, they go with me.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I mean, it's always been there in the baseline, and I think it's always been a part of my life. Just never acted on it, never really worked onto it till like 6 years ago. Yeah.
6 years, correct, 2014.
Yeah.
Awesome. But tell us something like, then why did pharmacy come into, because there are a lot of students who sort of struggle with, choosing the right career field for themselves, and they end up taking up science, and then, and in India, we have the system, right? For your 11th and 12th, you're sort of supposed to decide if you want to take up science or commerce or arts. And with, this burning desire to be in fashion, how did you actually decide not to take up fashion and take up, pharmacy actively?
So I'll be honest, I think I've always been the person who believes in stability. So for me, it was always doing what I love to do, but also being able to support myself. So for me, I was always someone who said I need to be independent and be able to support myself and then also be able to do what I want to do. So I think that's where science and arts both come into effect because I think science was that means for me to be able to do what I wanted to do. And I think that's how I saw it. I think you can end up liking whatever you do as long as you put your heart to it. It could be science, it could be painting, it could be singing, whatever. I'm sure you'll eventually love it if you put your heart to it. But that's what science was for me, was a way to support myself. And honestly, that was the only way of life because my whole family is a bunch of physicians. So I actually didn't know anything else, honestly, till
Okay.
I was more independent and in my own space. And I started seeing, oh, I could do this. I could also do this. So it was when I eventually grew up and spoke my own language, is when I realized there's other things I could do.
Wow, that's so amazing. And that's also, when you put it that way, that's a very different perspective on it altogether. Like, finding stability and independence and then choosing to do whatever the hell you want to do because life is really long. You can always, pick and choose.
Yeah. And you can do anything you want. I think I've become a person who just started collecting jobs. In fact, my husband was making fun of me the other day because I was like, I think just like your, so my grandpa collects a lot of things. He used to collect coins and like postcards. So he's like, I think just like your grandpa, you have a habit of collecting things, but your problem is you're collecting jobs. But yeah.
I think so too. I will have to agree with your husband on that. You do have a tendency to have multiple hustles at the same time, and I don't know how humanly that is possible. And your LinkedIn is pretty much like anybody who not wants to know sort of anything about you can just go on your LinkedIn, and it's so beautiful, just so beautifully articulated and so nicely written, and everything that you've ever done in your life is so easily available for anybody, like the highlights of your life, of course, to read and understand, okay, this is the background that you come from, and this is what you're doing right now with your life. And while even, sort of coming up with these questions, all I had to do was go on your LinkedIn and look up everything that you've done. And I was so awestruck right then and there, which brings me to this. I'm deviating here. This was one of the later questions, but since we've talked about jobs already, I really wanted to ask you this. What would you suggest young entrepreneurs or young fashion graduates or young fashion designers when it comes to optimizing LinkedIn? Because your LinkedIn is like beautifully done up, like absolutely beautifully done up.
Use it for reference. You can use it for reference. I think just having clarity in communication, just being able to say, this is what I've done and standing true to it and being confident in putting it out there. I think that's all. And LinkedIn needs to be clean and people need to know what you did and how you did it, you know? So every job needs to have a description, which is so important. A lot of people just say fashion stylist. But what did you do? Like, what did you learn from it? And the biggest mistake people make with styling is they think styling is just putting clothes together. It's not true. Once you start styling, you realize actually that's the last thing you do. The first thing is making sure we even have clothes. So I think that's very important is people need to actually understand a job and job description before even thinking that's a job that they're doing.
Absolutely. I think
So
that's so right. And yeah, especially the young generation, I feel that it's so simple for them to just think that, oh, it's just putting together like good clothes and that's being a fashion stylist. It's
huh.
it's just doing that. But so
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's about it. So, but there's so much more to it. Like there's a lot of, sourcing, there's a lot of mood boarding, there's a lot of like, in-depth research that goes
I mean,
into it.
honestly, there's sometimes not even that much mood boarding because you don't have time to sit in front of a computer. Like you literally are running around. So honestly, I think there are
That's so
times where I
true.
actually force my assistant to be like, "You don't have a mood board." But like, Devki, I can't sit in front of a computer. I'm running around finding clothes. So I think it just comes down to are you able to hustle and what are you hustling for? So you have to be mindful of the fact that every job description definitely has more than 5 or 6 things that you're doing. You're not just doing one thing and be able to define those in clarity.
Absolutely. I think that's absolute gold advice. And since we're talking about hustling, I wanted to actually touch upon this topic that you have been running a full-fledged business while, you were on a full-time job with pharma. And it's much later that I believe, again, this is all LinkedIn
Yeah.
information, but it's much later that you quit and actually got into fashion
Yeah.
hardcore. But how did you manage doing, like, this was essentially a side hustle for you, I'm guessing, but with the time zone differences in India, being in the US always, and then figuring out how did you manage to do all of that?
I gave up on sleep. I think I don't remember sleeping for the longest time. I remember I used to go to work at 7 in the morning and I used to come home at 9. And I used to come home and instantly, I didn't even eat at times, and I would just like start working. And yeah, I think you gave up on sleep, but I think there was a drive. I don't know what it was. It was just like, I want to do this. And I just kept on thinking, and I couldn't sleep because I was excited to do things. So maybe it was the fact that I actually enjoyed doing these things is what kept me up. And I mean, at some point it does build up, and you're like, okay, I need to sleep. So that's when it was that time. I think after 10 years of practicing pharmacy, I left it in 2019, right before COVID. So that's when I was like, okay, it's time. I kind of let that go. But honestly, I think it was just a drive of the excitement and actually enjoying what I was doing. And
Wow. But is there
yeah.
something that helped you navigate, for those 10 years and the last 6 while you were working a full-time job? doing this in India, doing like a complete styling business in India, styling for celebrities, and that is a very in-demand job. It requires you to be on your toes, right? I've seen
Yeah.
stylists, I've seen a lot of stylists, a lot of friends struggling, to deal with celebrities and the tantrums, and of course to have to, deal with all the last minute changes and the last minute alterations. How did you manage all of that, not even being present?
I have been blessed by amazing people, be it my family, be it everyone around me, even my clients. Like they're the most understanding people I've worked with. My assistants, who I would never ever do, probably think of a day without them. Kritika, Mandar, Mona, Akanksha, all of these people. For me, they literally run the show. So I think it's just a blessing of having the right people around you and building that family, which is so important, be it in workspace or in your personal space. And I think I attest everything to everyone I know more than just myself because I'm just one person, right? In two different
Absolutely.
countries. So yeah, they're my extension, the extension of my arms back in another country. So it's always everyone around you.
That's amazing, and that is so true. You can't run a show all alone, and it's beautiful that you're actually crediting everyone. Not a lot of people do that, even today, which is great. But which also brings me to this question: that how do you actually find and identify the right people and the right fit for your team?
You go through a lot of wrong people.
Okay,
I
true.
yeah. Yeah, it's experience, right? I mean, you make your mistakes, you work with the wrong people, then you find the right people. But you also have to approach every single relationship with faith, and that's what's important. Every time you start fresh, you start fresh. You don't think of what happened in the past. You learn your lessons, but then you also give them the faith that they deserve. And if you put faith in them, they'll give back to you, right? Otherwise, if you doubt it from day one, you're never going to get that. So I think it's always making sure that you let them know that, hey, I believe in you. And if they are good enough to reciprocate, then it's perfect.
Absolutely, that's so beautiful. You have to put the faith in. That's so correct. Like I have a bunch of questions, but the first one that I have is: I believe you've worked as a wardrobe consultant, you've styled, you've also worked as a studio stylist in the US, right? So from pharma, was that your first step? Was that your first
Yeah.
actual step towards fashion? Is that when you decided, okay, let me just do this? So,
Yes, because there's a warehouse here in Kentucky, actually. It's called Rulala, and they shoot all of their e-commerce there. So that's where it kind of started. I was like, hey, it's right here. It's an hour away. I can drive an hour on my days off, and I can do it. So that's where it started.
okay, all right. And today you worked as a celebrity stylist for so many celebrities back in India, and you've also started the Yellow Dot, right? While you're in the US, can you tell us a little more about balancing, your work-life balance in the US with your company there, with your work, with the work you're doing there, because you're also like a fashion features writer for Vogue. You've also recently started working as a photo shoot coordinator for Bella Bliss. So you have like, a lot of jobs
Yeah.
that you're doing here in the US, and you also have a registered company in India, and you're also styling. How are you sort of creating the work-life balance for yourself?
There's no work-life balance. Um, so basically, I mean, honestly, I start my day every day at 5, no matter what day it is. India happens in the morning, US happens in the daytime, and writing happens at nighttime. So, I mean, and but I'm lucky that I live in a town that everything is just 10 minutes away, so I never waste my time on anything. So, I mean, that's why I think I like living in Lexington because you can like a small town, you can have a life. You don't it's slow living, so people around you are not as fast paced as I am. So it
Yeah,
helps because they have more time than I do, so I can see them more
yeah.
on their more free time. So yeah. No, I don't think there's such thing as a work-life balance. I think life happens to you while you're working. That's how I see it. Some people see it differently. I see it that way. And I think if you're enjoying doing what you're doing, I mean, that's your life. I mean, for me, work is my life. Everything I do for work is my life. I meet people through work. I build families through work. So, I mean, I don't see it any differently. And I don't know what I would do if I didn't have like 5 things to do in a day. So,
That is actually so amazing. And also, I relate to it a little bit. But I've just moved to Canada, and the time zone difference already has been
Oh
killer. One
yeah.
of the things that I decided immediately was that I'm going to start my mornings at 4 a.m. so that, I can work on the Indian time zone, get done with all my classes in the morning, all the sessions that I have to take in the academy in the morning. And then, I can work in Toronto and figure out work here. And it's only been like 10 days. But kudos to you for doing it for like 10 years. That's crazy. That's crazy. And that's
You know,
literally
it's funny when I go back and forth. So many people ask me, like, are you done with the jet lag? And I was like, you know what? There's no such thing as jet lag anymore. I don't think of it. Like, I think if you get to sleep, you sleep. If you don't get to sleep, you don't sleep. Like, there's no such thing as jet lag in my life anymore.
wow. That's insane. And I think a lot of young students here would be listening to this even later and understand that, if you want to achieve things in life, you have to let go of things that you love, and that is sleep. If you really love sleeping, let go of it, and you'll have just more time. You're stealing more time for yourself, right? And for your dreams. So why not?
Yeah, which is
I
true.
think
I mean, you'll sleep eventually, right? When you are done with everything.
that's never going to happen. That truly never happens. So, I personally think like once you have one thing done, you're on to the other one, and you're on to the other one, and then you're on to the other one. And if you have time on hand, people like you and I personally feel we keep looking for more things to do. We keep figuring out like, I have 2 hours extra in the day. Can I like do something else? Could I like launch a new course? Could I like freelance for this person? Could I take up that project and actually, build a collection for them? So that's what I think people who hustle think. Like there's no rest time for us, which I think.
Yeah, that's what life's about, doing whatever you can. One life, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I love that philosophy. I absolutely love that philosophy. And I actually also wanted to ask you this that I know that you've all sort of always been driven by fashion, and we know that now that it's always been there. It's like something underlying which has always been a part of your life. But fashion styling is a lot different than content writing. But you recently ventured into fashion content writing as well, and you started writing for Vogue, one of the magazines that you've absolutely been holding on for the longest time. It must be like a dream come true. Uh, how did that happen, and how did that fit into like the life goals of Dev Ki Bhatt?
I'm saying I manifested it. That's what I'm gonna say.
I
Because
love
I have every single Vogue out there, kept on staring at it, and one day it just happened. So it's manifestation, nothing else. It's just I've always been a closet writer. I've always been obsessed with writing, putting my thoughts out. I'm not always good at verbalizing everything in one go, so I'm really good at just putting my thoughts down on a paper, and that's what I've always done all my life. In
that.
fact, I was that only Indian kid in Langston, Kentucky that passed AP. You know AP classes. I don't know if
No,
it's
we don't have
so
any.
here in high school, you can do college classes in high school, and you can skip
Oh,
them in college.
oh,
So
okay.
usually, all my friends who were Indian would always like pass math. I was very bad at math. I'm still bad at math. So I mean, throw numbers at me and I stop thinking. So for me, it has always been about words, and I passed AP English, and they're like, "But you're Indian," and I was like, "I know," and they were surprised because I was from India. I had just moved from India, and I was in high school, so I've always been that person who loved reading and literature and writing. So I think that just came inherently, and it is interesting because I've never written about fashion. I think it's a very it is different for me. I've never verbalized it. I've always visualized it. It's never been in writing. So it's a
Yeah,
great challenge. It's a great experience, and I'm learning a lot from it. So actually, I'll say I'm learning from it. I won't say I am someone who, was ready to do this.
yeah,
So, I mean, but I'm thankful to be able to do it, and I'm truly
absolutely,
enjoying it. So, and it's a
absolutely.
different language. It's a very different language. So, yeah.
I'm sure. And the way you say it, like, you've always been visualizing, and to be able to verbalize, these are two different ball games altogether. And that's such like, it's just such a beautiful sort of comparison. And that itself tells me that you are good at verbalizing it. You
I'm
absolutely are.
trying.
And you're succeeding. And every single time that I open in the last 2 years, every single time that I've gone through my Instagram and I've seen your profile, it's one thing onto the other thing, which is very, very inspiring. And it's really amazing the kind of work that you're doing, and the hustle and the drive that you have, and also like this sort of, there's some people who sort of do it, but then they're not like really, they're exhausted, they're not very happy about it. You seem to be somebody who actually loves it, and you love the hustle and you love what you're doing, which is incredible. So yeah, thank you for sort of being an inspiration for all of us out here, just to look up to and feel that, hey, if she can, so can we. We have to keep working hard and we have to give up on sleep.
You're being too kind with all these words. I just feel like you need to put it out there, and I think everything happens. You just have to be patient, and things do happen as long as you're working hard. So I think whoever thinks that, hey, I want to do this, just stay at it. It may not happen this year. It may not happen next year. It'll happen in 5 years, but it will happen if you just stick through
Yeah,
it, you know?
that is so true. But tell me something. Like we have like a lot of young audience here. Like we have students from the age group of like 14 to 18 who are like young adults just getting into fashion, figuring out a career, figuring out if it's their calling or not. If you would have an advice for them when it comes to the fashion industry, when it comes to like starting a career in fashion styling, what would
Mhm.
it be?
Stick to one thing in the sense that, I mean, it's kind of funny that I am saying that. But at that point in time, when you decide something, do it with clarity. Don't be like, should I do this? Should I not do this? Don't question yourself and just do it. And then see what happens. I think that's very important. So, like, even in fashion right now, I think a lot of people are really scared as to where fashion's headed, right? Especially designers. I think it's a very scary field right now. But I think um, if you do what you're good at, you will find a way of doing it the right way, and you'll find a way to monetize it, which is very important. We all may say, let's just do what we love, but we have to monetize everything we do. You're not going to sustain yourself. You'll create one collection, but you won't be able to create a second one, which is what I always speak to my designers about with Yellow Dot. That's the whole idea of Yellow Dot, is helping emerging designers sustain themselves. And I think that's very important, is make that decision, but think practically. Don't get excessively emotional in your decisions, and don't second guess yourself. I think the moment you second guess yourself, you're kind of including doubt in the process. And the moment you include doubt in your process, your creative process is going to be messed up, right? Because you're going to start listening to other people. And what someone else is going to say is probably not going to be relevant to your life. They have no idea what's relevant to your life. Apart from your closest family, no one really knows, right? So I think it's very important you do it with the sense of confidence and then see what happens. At least you've done your best. At least you've done everything you could to formalize what you want. And I think that's very important. So, I mean, every field has its highs and lows. I mean, pharmacy also had its high and low. I'll be honest, like at some point, pharmacy was stooping in, and now it's come back again because of this healthcare issue, right? So every field has a cycle, and it's gonna today you might be amazing at what you do as a designer. In a couple of years, again, it's gonna stoop down. So you just have to go through it and you pivot with changes around in the industry. So you just need to know that you need to pivot in no matter what industry you are.
That's absolutely so true. And if the pandemic has taught us one thing, that is this: you need like
Yeah.
whenever the entire market is disrupted right now. We all know that, but you have to adapt and you have to pivot. Brands that were not online at all are on all social platforms. They've got websites
Yeah.
today. People who always thought that they're always going to retail and set up tie-ups with multi-designer brands, etc., and like just have presence there. Everybody's online, everybody's social. Brands like Ensemble, which like I have worked with, and
Yeah.
back in the day I remember like always asking like, why don't we have a website, why don't we have a separate section for the in-house design collection that we do. And back in the day it was like, we don't need that. Like, we're a luxury premium sort of a store. And today they are online. And of course, they're nailing the online space also. But, you know, uh,
You have to learn
definitely.
with times. You have to grow with times. And if you don't have any business, how are you gonna grow?
Absolutely, absolutely. And back in the day, I think 10 years back, fashion influencers were thought to be like, just these sidetracked young little girls who just want to dress up. And today they're pretty much overtaking mainstream media. Like there's more influencer budgets for every brand, whether it is MSME, whatever it is, whatever industry you're in. There's so much budget kept aside for influencer marketing itself. And if you don't
But if you
adapt,
think you're talking about influencers. The funny thing is now micro influencers are more relevant than macro, right? Like it used to be about big
Absolutely.
names, but now it's about small
Absolutely.
names. So things are going to change, and we just have to be aware of that.
Correct. That is so true. And with every few years, with every few months, the entire wave of the industry sort of, in a different direction. And where fashion is at right now, with the fashion, NFTs come up, with sustainability come up, with so many different things coming up, we really don't know where it's headed. But you have to keep an open mind. That's
Yeah.
so true. You have to keep an open mind, which is great. I actually have this last question for you. So you've been running the Yellow Dot for like 3 years now, close, 3 years plus, and you've worked with, I'm sure, innumerable brands and designers and young emerging designers in the industry. When you look back and see those brands today, and I'm sure they're at a much better place because you've helped them grow. Is there something that you would like to, snippets from those experiences that you would like to share with young fashion entrepreneurs who are just getting started in a career in fashion and just starting their own brands, or people who have, sort of done a few collections but are not seeing the numbers? Would you have any advices or suggestions for brands in India?
I think it's very important to one have a brand identity of your own. Stop making stuff to please everyone else. Make something that you would wear. I think so many designers end up thinking they need to overstyle something, they need to have this massive campaign, they need to have these really outlandish designs, but it's all about wearability, which we forget. And as an Indian market, I think we hugely forget the wearability of garments. And that to me, I think is so important. I mean, there's a reason why brands like H&M and M and Zara have started existing in India is because we are not making wearable garments. So I think that's very important that the future generation of designers kind of keep that in mind. And that's what I keep on honing on to, like the designers I work with as well. And also another thing is you need to have consistency with collections. If you're not going to have consistency with collections, no one's going to identify your brand. Every new collection is going to be different than who is this brand, you know? Like today we know this is Sabia. Today we know this is Tarun. There's a reason why. And even Shivan Naresh for a young brand or Dhruv Kapoor, they've identified themselves as these brands who make these specific designs and they consistently make that. So I think that is absolutely important for these emerging designers to keep that in mind because what happens is I think they make the first collection, it's stunning. The second collection somewhere stumps because they start hearing things about, oh, this is not selling, make this because this is going to sell more. So there'll be a brand that makes contemporary outfits, and suddenly they go into festive wear. And you're
Yeah.
like, what? You know, and the
Yeah.
reason they do festive is because India sells festive. I get it. But you can't just suddenly change the whole brand identity just because you want to sell.
Yeah.
And sales are important, but there's a way to do it then, you know? And these are things that I feel like I wish they were told while they were in school. Just stick to who you are, and eventually by third or fourth collection, people will start identifying you if you are consistently strong.
Absolutely, I think that's such sound advice. And I remember this reminds me of a snippet from a conversation with Reena Singh from Eka, wherein she told us about how she actually moved and started selling her clothes international, and she took her entire brand international because in India everybody wanted like that zari gota patti. And she's like, I'm done
Yeah.
with it. I don't, that's not who I am as a person. And I think one of the best decisions ever made, like sticking to your identity. And today the world knows Eka as the,
Yeah.
which I think
And like a
is,
really good example is Saksha's a really good friend of mine, so I always think of it. When Saksha Kini first came into the market, people didn't understand the garments, did they? People didn't understand the below flow, the flowy things and the pleats and like, you know, not too structured garments. But slowly they stuck at it and people started recognizing it. People started understanding it. And that's so important to be confident in who you are.
absolutely. I think that is such sound advice, to be confident in who you are. Like, you have to own it. You have to own it, the good, the
Yeah.
bad.
I mean,
And
there's a
you
reason
will
you're
find.
creating it. Yeah.
That is so true. That is so true. Thank you so much, Devki. I think this is beautiful sound advice. Thank you so much for doing this. Okay, we have a question from Samriddhi. Who is your biggest inspiration?
He, you know, actually, my grandpa's always been my biggest influence. Um, he's always been that person. Actually, just like me, he's always done 10,000 things. Even when I was a kid, like I remember helping him with everything from his like stamp collection to book collection to everything. I was always his minion. So he's always been my inspiration and he's achieved amazing things. He was a physician, but he also did a lot of other things on the side. So maybe that's where I get it from, is this idea of doing one thing but being able to do several more while you're doing it.
That's amazing. That's so beautiful. I have another question coming in. How to get started as a stylist in the Indian fashion industry? Where do you start from?
Where do you start from? Start assisting people, start talking to people. There's a lot of projects available for people now, I feel like, because the industry has started and how. There's a space for everyone. So I really think also another thing that really helps is starting to get these test shoots. A lot of people do test shoots in India, right? So you can contact these agencies, talent agencies, and see, if they're looking for doing a test shoot. Yes, initially you might not be making the money you want to make, but eventually you do. Just have patience. I just feel like don't start off thinking that, this is what I need to make out of this. That's when you get a stable job. If you're looking for stability and income, get a job. Then don't ask of it from this industry, at least for now, because you build up your way in this. And that's very important to recognize.
That is so true. Like you can't just expect to start one day and expect, whatever it is that you
It's not
want.
going to happen. You always will have to build your way through. And you have to prove it. You have to prove yourself. You have to prove your mettle in this industry always. And you have to continue to do that.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful. And of course, we have students asking how they can intern with you. If you would like to
So
answer
there's an email address. And now that you've heard of LinkedIn, go clean up your LinkedIn, send me your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, but make sure you clean it up, go through this video again, make sure you're doing it exactly how Devki's advised you
Yeah.
to have a better shot.
More importantly, email me, please, and write a good written email.
Yes, absolutely. No, nobody writes an email without a cover letter. Send a nice cover letter and put in your resume if you have test shoots that you've done or portfolio that you've built. Share that as well. And I think Devki's been very, very kind with us. And thank you so much. This is amazing. You are literally an
Right.
inspiration, Devki. I'm so, so grateful that you took the time out today to do this, Devki. So, so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see you.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Bye.
Thank you.